Welcome everyone to our prenatal yoga class here on YouTube. I'm excited that you're here. No matter what part of your pregnancy journey you're at, no matter what your background is, who you identify as, you're welcome here. There's space for you, and we're really excited that you're here. So thank you for joining. And also, before we get started, we're all on YouTube here. Different people might be at different points in their pregnancy journey, and I'm gonna offer a few different variations for people depending on where you're at. So I would definitely try and listen to that. And overall, if you're unsure or if something doesn't feel right, just choose a pose that feels good for you and good for your body. So don't try anything that doesn't feel right. If you're unsure at all, I definitely recommend that you talk to your pelvic health physiotherapist or medical practitioner to make sure that this class is appropriate for you. Now, when we're in the last 4 to 6 weeks of pregnancy, it's best if we just focus on relaxing our pelvic floor rather than contracting and trying to lift it off. So throughout the class today, we might have points where I'm talking about contracting and lifting the pelvic floor, followed by relaxing. And what I'd like you to do instead, if you're in that last couple weeks of your pregnancy, is really just focusing on relaxing your pelvic floor intentionally and then bringing it to neutral. So avoiding that contraction and that heavy kind of lifting phase of our pelvic floor movement. So outside of that, I'll try and offer some different alternatives throughout the class today, and I encourage you to do what feels right for you.
We're Karen Physiotherapy, your trusted source for health classes, information, and outdoor activity preparation. We help you live the lifestyle you dream of.
So our pelvic floor is a group of muscles that's really important for a huge number of bodily functions and day-to-day activities. It's located at the base of our pelvis, and that's in between our sit bones, if you can feel them as you're sitting on the floor here, and in between our pubic bone and our tailbone. So we're gonna learn a little bit about its function, what it does, and how we can control it. If cross-leg sitting doesn't feel good for you today, feel free to bring your knees up and your feet flat on the floor. You can sit side sitting if that feels a bit better. And I also encourage you to use blankets or meditation pillows to sit on and see if that helps you feel a bit more comfortable. So once we're in a comfortable seat here, I just want you to picture that area that your pelvic floor is in. See if you can feel your sit bones on the floor, rolling back towards your tailbone, rolling forward towards your pubic bone, and just get a sense of where that muscle group is. Now, the pelvic floor works with our diaphragm, which is our powerful breathing muscle. And as our diaphragm lowers and expands to let air into the lungs, our pelvic floor does the same. So it'll expand, it'll, relax and almost drop towards the floor. And as we breathe out, our diaphragm lifts and our pelvic floor will lift as well. So you almost have this little subtle pumping motion between the two muscles every time you take a breath. And we don't really think about that. That happens quite automatically. But it's nice because we can use our breath to help control our pelvic floor and bring more awareness to it and help learn how to relax it a little bit better, which is very important during our pregnancy journeys. So that's where we're kind of going with this today. We're going to do a bit of breath work to get started and see if you can just notice what your pelvic floor is doing naturally. So I like to use a rolled towel just to get some extra feedback. if you want to pause to grab a face cloth, a towel, a t-shirt, anything that you have around there that might work. And I just roll it up quite long and thin like this. And what we're going to do is tilt off to the side and have it just in between your sit bones, between your tailbone and your pubic bone, but you want your sit bones to stay on the floor. So ideally having that towel or face cloth right on your perineum or your pelvic floor and your sit bones still firm on the ground. So once you have that, we're gonna do 3 nice, slow, deep breaths. Really thinking about breathing in, expanding your belly, and then feeling your belly fall as you exhale slowly. So we're not doing short, shallow breaths up here, but really trying to breathe all the way down into the belly and the pelvis. Now, hopefully you notice some subtle movements of your pelvic floor on that towel or on the floor. And now we're gonna try and connect our pelvic floor movements to our breath. So like I was mentioning there, as we inhale, our pelvic floor expands and we almost want to feel it pushing into the towel a little bit, putting some pressure down towards the floor. And really trying to expand, almost like you're getting ready to go pee, but you're not quite going that far. And then as we exhale and breathe out, we're going to do a little contraction or a lift. So as I mentioned, if you're in the last couple weeks of your pregnancy, just focus on the relaxing part as you're inhaling, and then, bring it to neutral for your exhales. But for those of you earlier on in your pregnancy, we can work a little bit on that contraction and that lift as you're exhaling. So let's do 5 breaths here at your own pace. See if you can connect those 2 together. It does take some coordination and practice. So 5 breaths just on your own here. As we inhale, we expand, and as we exhale, we lift. And as we inhale, we expand, and as we exhale, we lift. And as we inhale, we expand, relax into the towel. And as we exhale, we lift and contract off the towel. And as we inhale, we expand. And as we exhale, we lift and contract. Good. Now from here, we're going to come onto hands and knees in our 4-point kneeling or tabletop position. If you can rock forward onto your hands, that's great. If you want to take your time getting there in your own way, that's perfect. And we'll move our towels off to the side. So, coming into this tabletop position here, we're gonna just push through our hands, really feel the pads of our fingers against the mat here, and feeling our feet against the mat, our knees against the mat, really pushing away from your yoga mat and activating the muscles in your upper back. And from here, we're going to do some cat-cow movements. Now, if you're in your last trimester, we're just going to go from our cow position where you're bringing your chest forward, dropping your belly, looking up, and then we're going to come back to neutral. So coming up, dropping your belly, looking forward, and then back to neutral. So if you're in your 3rd trimester, we're just going to stay here. And maybe if you're earlier on in your pregnancy and this feels good for you, you can stay here as well. If you feel like it's available to you, we can start to bring in our angry cat position. So curling down towards your chest and back. So for cat, you're rising the mid back towards the ceiling, bringing your chin to your chest, and then shining your heart forward, lifting your chest, looking up. Now we're going to start to connect this with our breath here. So as you come into cow position, we're going to take a nice big inhale. And as we come down, we're going to exhale. And as you're doing this, let's see if we can notice our pelvic floor during the same breath phases as we were doing in sitting. So as you're inhaling, we want to expand the sit bones, widen our pelvic floor, relax. And as we come into cat pose, we're going to tighten, lift, contract our pelvic floor as we breathe out. Relaxing the pelvic floor and lifting the pelvic floor. And we're going to meet back in neutral. And I want you to take your hips and almost bump them to one side. So we'll bump them off to the right here. And then you're going to tilt your shoulders and look towards your right hip. And then we're going to come doing the same thing on the left side, bumping the hip to the side and looking over that way. So going back and forth and making almost a C shape with your spine. So it's almost like you're a dog wagging its tail here. Good. Now we're gonna come and walk our hands towards our knees and just meet in a low kneeling position with our hands on top of our legs here. From here, as we breathe in, we're going to come up to high kneeling. And as we breathe out, we're going to lower back down. And then breathing in up to high kneeling, lift your chest, and then back to low kneeling. One more time here, up to high kneeling. Lift your chest and back to low kneeling. Now, coming up to high kneeling here, we're going to take our right leg and step it forward into a half kneeling position. And from here, we're going to push off that right leg and come all the way up to standing mountain pose. So just standing at the front of your mat, really feeling the pressure through your feet, lifting and wiggling your toes. Just noticing where you're taking weight through your feet. And try and push through the ball joints of the big toe and the pinky toe, as well as your heels. Now I want you to try and shift your weight into the right leg. And then back to the middle. And then shifting weight into the left leg. Back to the middle. And if you want to try and lift your pelvic floor as we shift our weight to each leg with a relaxing phase in the middle, feel free to join me on that. If you just want to shift back and forth without that contraction, that's okay too. So as we shift our weight to the right side, lift your pelvic floor, contract, and then back to the middle, relax, expand your pelvic floor. Shift to the left, lift, contract the muscles in between your sit bones, and then back to the middle and relax. One more time on each side, shifting to the right, lifting that pelvic floor, back to the middle and relax. Expand. Take a second here to really feel that expansion. And then shifting to the left, lifting. And then back to the middle, just relaxed. Expand your pelvic floor. Now with your hands on your hips, we're just going to go and do some figure eights with our pelvis. So we're going to bring our hips back behind us, out in front, and then back behind to the other side, in front, and going back and forth to each side just like this. So this should feel nice after doing a lot of that pelvic floor focused movement. Good. Now, I want everyone to try and bring their arms in front of them, just like this. And we're going to sit our hips backwards into chair pose. You should be able to wiggle your toes here a little bit. Really keep your chest shining forward, lifting up from your chest. Keeping your chin in a little bit of a tucked position so you're not hinging at the back of your neck. And you almost want to think that you're holding a big beach ball out to the front. And then rising back up, coming to mountain pose again. Taking a nice big cleansing breath here. And we're going to do that again. So bringing your arms forward, sitting back into your chair pose, lifting from your chest, keeping that heart open. One more breath here. And standing up, mountain pose. From here, we're going to shift all our weight into the right foot. And the left foot, we're going to just bring our heel up onto your right ankle. Now this might feel like enough balance for you today. You can have your hands on your hips. You can have your hands out to the side, above your head. Whatever feels good for you today. Feel free to stand next to a wall to help catch your balance if that's needed. And if it's available to you today, you can take that left foot and lift it up towards your knee, or lifting it all the way up to the inner crease of your right hip. We're going to do a few breaths here. If you fall over, that's welcome, that's okay. If you're wobbling and swaying, that's great. We're just going to welcome whatever sensations we have today, and don't be afraid to catch yourself if you fall. Now, nice and controlled, we're going to take our left foot and very slowly bring it back to the floor. We're going to shift our weight over to the left side and do the same thing. So just starting off with the right heel on the left ankle. And sometimes this is enough for balancing here. We're narrowing our base of support, which can be quite tough for our bodies to control. And if it's available to you, you can lift that right foot up to your knee, or feeling free to bring it all the way up to the opposite hip crease. And again, welcoming any movement, any swaying, wobbling, trying to fixate on something in front of you that's not moving will help. One more breath here. And with control, we're going to lower that right foot back down to the floor. Take our feet nice and wide. Have your hands on your hips, and leading with our chest, we're going to dive forward. Now, if you're dizzy, you might just come to this point here where your head is still above your heart, and we're just getting a nice stretch at the back of the legs here. If it feels available to you, you can bring your hands towards the floor and come into a full wide-legged forward fold. Taking a few deep breaths here. Relax your head. Shake it in the yes direction, the no direction. You can grab opposite elbows if that feels good for you. And feel free to sway side to side. Really press through the outer edge of your feet and the ball joints of the big toe and the pinky toe. Now, taking your time, bringing your hands back to your legs, we're going to move them all the way up to your hips. And then we're going to do a nice slow roll all the way up, one vertebrae at a time. Into our nice power pose. So from here, your feet should be about as wide as your yoga mat. We're going to just turn our toes so that your toes are coming off the mat a little bit. And if it feels okay for you to do this, we're going to come into a yogi squat, which is a really great position for lengthening our pelvic floor. That's not always available to everyone, so if that doesn't feel good, come into a seated position on the floor the best way you can for your body. So use the wall if you need to, or a chair, anything you need to get down onto the floor safely. And if you want to do the yogi squat today, feel free to follow along. So again, our feet are as wide as our yoga mat. Our toes are pointing just slightly off the yoga mat. And we're going to bring our hands to our heart in prayer position and sitting all the way down into our yogi squat, having your elbows in between your knees. And we're going to do a little bit of a push-pull here where our hands are in a strong prayer position. Our elbows are pressing into our knees and our knees are pressing into our elbows. Let's do 3 breaths here if you're in the squat position. And from here, we're going to take one hand at a time to bring it behind our hips. And then we're going to slowly control our bottom all the way down to the floor. Just like that. Now, on the floor here, we're going to bring the bottoms of our feet together into a butterfly stretch position. Try and bring your heels as close to your pelvis as you can comfortably. And maybe today that looks more like a diamond shape with your feet far in front. And maybe you can get them quite close into that butterfly form. Wherever you're at today is perfectly fine. And we just want to get a nice little hip opening movement here. There's no pressure or expectations on how far we push. It's all about doing what feels good. So making sure that we're lifting from our chest, we're not collapsing into our back. Taking nice deep breaths. And then keeping your right leg in towards the hips here, we're going to take the left leg and extend it forward. Straighten the knee, bringing our toes up towards our face. So just in this position here. And we're going to raise our arms up overhead as we inhale. Lift your chest up, and then we're going to drop down towards that left leg. Now maybe your hands land on your thighs today, maybe your knee, maybe you reach all the way down to your ankle and your foot, and wherever you are, that's okay. Let's keep really active feet wherever you are, really lifting those toes up and flexing the foot. And we're just getting a nice stretch into the back of the legs here. Now we're gonna straighten out the right leg and bring the left leg bent, bringing that left foot back into the right inner thigh. And again, we're gonna take a nice big inhale as we lift our arms up overhead. And then exhale as we fold down towards the right leg. And whether you land on the knee, the thigh, the calf, that's all okay. We're going to keep really active feet, bringing those toes up towards our head and taking a few deep breaths here. Try and keep your chest up towards the wall ahead of you. And then bringing that foot back in to a cross-leg position. Now, getting ready for Shavasana here. We want to do our Shavasana laying on our left side today. So I would definitely recommend getting some pillows, some blankets, maybe some cozy socks to put on, just something to get comfortable in. And we're going to get a nice pillow off to that side there. And we're going to lay down on our left side here. So take your time getting there. However feels good for you is fine. And we're just going to lay all the way down onto that side. Now I invite you to close your eyes here. And just notice the sound of your breath. Notice any sensations you're feeling in your feet and your toes. Feeling if there's anything new happening around your shins, your knees. And letting your lower legs be super heavy, just sinking into the floor. And we're going to notice our thigh muscles, muscles at the back of our legs. And we're going to try and let them be really heavy as well. Let your pelvis sink into the floor. And relax the muscles around your belly. Let your arms fall down into the floor wherever is comfortable. And taking any tension out around the shoulders and the upper back. Noticing any points of tension around the face. There might be tension around the eyebrows, the forehead. Try and relax that. Let it go. So take this moment with every exhale to breathe more tension out. And continuing to find different areas of your body that you can relax. Now bringing awareness back to your breath. See if we can make our inhales and exhales a little bit longer. Wiggle your hands and your toes. And when you're ready, just blink your eyes open. Now take your time. We're going to come and meet in a seated position. So you can push up using your right arm. Coming into a side sit position. And then sitting however is comfortable for you today. So maybe that looks like your legs out front in this position. Maybe we're sitting on top of a blanket here. Getting your sit bones on top and coming into an easy pose. So however is comfortable for you, we'll come up to a seated position and just feeling that grounding sensation in our sit bones and our hips. So hopefully that was a good little exercise for your pelvic floor and your breathing and generally your full body here during this special time. And just keeping in mind that connection to your breath, remembering to relax those areas of tension throughout your day. And hopefully that was useful for you today. So thank you for joining me. We really appreciate you visiting our channel today. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day or evening, and we'll see you soon.